Welcome, Corey. I'm so excited to have you on another episode of Get Real, an Own Person podcast. I'm Megan Morris Gerzon, and today I have a former colleague, but I would say a friend, Corey Prince here. He has a lot to share, and we're going to talk about why your personal passions might be your truest career move. So I'll just let Corey, I'll let you intro yourself. Tell us who you are, what you do, and also we live in the same area, which is awesome because we always get to run into each other.
Which was quite accidental. And
Yeah,
Megan,
it
thank you
was.
for letting me join you today and for even the ability to share some of these thought process, which I feel pretty strongly about. And it's always been very much a kind of a foundational belief structure for
Yeah.
the way I've in essence kind of gone through my life. So,
Yeah.
so if I could provide a little intro, as Megan said, my name is Corey Prince. I run a small shop here in Newburyport. It is called New England Sketchbook. If I were to really segment what I would look as primary components of my career, uh, it really has fallen into three primary parts, which has been all completely disparate and completely disconnected, at least as they seem on the surface, which has been construction, retail, and high tech,
Yeah.
and moving across all of those. And interestingly, my undergraduate degree was pre-law. It was legal studies. I was actually
Cool.
intending to be a lawyer early on, but then shifted gears. So,
Mhm. Yeah, you've made some pretty drastic shifts over your career, but that just shows that you have a lot of versatility and different talents. So that's, props to you for that. So I'll jump in and you were mentioning like this is kind of a philosophy and
yep,
you're following your passions, right? So every major career move you've made, it was guided by your passions. Can you take us back to one of the maybe those early turning points where you got into a certain field and then you switched? Was it what you were going through at the time, back to your early or mid 20s?
yep,
Walk us through that.
yeah. Which I nobody in their mid 20s really knows much of anything or where they're going to end up. But I
True.
I do think early on, I recognized that I had a very strong and persistent desire to learn.
Mhm.
And I can mark this and we'll cover some of this as we go through it. I think my desire to learn in starting out in some of these new roles and recognizing that, in short, I'm the dumbest person in the room,
Been there.
is a healthy thing,
Mhm.
because it as I stepped into every one of these stages, it was never with, hubris or, going into it thinking that I am somehow some gift into this category. It was really to learn from the people around me and to figure out how I could best contribute to it. So when I first got out of college, it was at a time where, uh, the wages were not all that disparate, and actually the blue collar fields paid even better than the things I could have done right out of college.
Yeah.
I've I've always had this incredible desire, an interest in working with my hands. I have this really strong belief that it's really important to know how to make your way and fix things and build things, and
It is important.
yep,
My
and there's
husband's the same way.
actually, it's interesting. I always kind of looked at, particularly in the trades, and I did a lot of like carpentry and in building work and such, that there is a strong amount of people in there who are really activated not only by the physicality of it, but the problem solving components.
Mhm.
It is one of those areas where you look at things and there's a lot of imperfection, and you are determining ways to actually work around those imperfections or even mistakes, quite
Mm.
frankly,
Yeah.
uh, and create something that's lasting, which is really cool. So
Yeah.
that is really what drove me. It was really those two core components about wanting to learn I was fortunate enough to work with a lot of like multi-decades mentors, if you will, who swore constantly and but taught me some incredibly cool things. Uh, and I loved it. I loved it.
That's awesome, and it's funny because my son is 20 months now, and I already see him problem solving, trying to use his hands and figure out how little toys work, just things like that. It's just so interesting to see that curiosity and, urge to learn, and you had that early on, and I'm sure you met so many different people that taught you all different things about life and just a variety of lessons. So you were in construction and loved it, and then your
Yep.
next phase was retail. So how'd you move into that?
So, with construction, it's kind of interesting. I worked for a few different firms, did a lot of commercial construction, actually became a foreman, was working on government jobs and doing some
Oh,
things like that. And and again, colorful crowd, you really want to get grounded in the New England experience. It's a great place to be there.
yes.
I learned some incredible things. But one of the things I did begin to realize, your gets pretty beat up. And some of the old timers that I knew, they'd come in the morning and they could barely walk. And, I had a couple of instances where I had to do things, where I started to get back problems and got nasty chemicals in my eyes and all these kind
Mhm,
of things. And so it part of that, that learning exercise, I'm like, okay, do I really want to kind of put my body through this over the course of time?
mhm.
So in a strange way, what ended up happening, it was kind of a twofold thing. I had started to dabble just on a part-time basis working at Jordan Marsh,
Jordan Mash.
and had actually quite a fantastic Jordan Marsh experience, and ended up getting into their management program and
Huh.
and working at multiple locations. Interestingly, by the way, just this morning, uh, found out that one of the main women over at Vintage Plum actually opened the Nashua store with me, and we hadn't even realized that we
Oh
had
my
worked together.
gosh.
Yeah, it was
Full
almost
circle
creepy
moment.
on the sidewalk this morning.
Wow.
But from that, kind of the department store mentality, it was great, some great people there, but really what I had a stronger interest in was kind of the business building part of it. And I've been a lifelong musician, spent a lot of time at Nuri Comics.
Yep.
And one day I was in a shop in Burlington, and the manager there was like, "Hey, you should really come here because you kind of know what you're doing and you have an interesting background and you're a musician and love music." So I went off and then spent a good decade plus at Newbury Comics. Primarily, I was kind of a field guy. I would uh, parachute into a location, help open new stores, hire the staff, create the design. I had a primary partner in crime. Her name was Amy, and we were kind of the store opening gang.
Mhm.
And early on, interestingly, they absolutely positively took advantage of my construction capability.
Oh.
And I would say the first 10 Newbury comics I built out, I literally built them by hand, like,
Oh my
literally built
gosh.
them by hand. I would bring in other employees, and I would kinda guide them through the process, but fundamentally, I was installing slat wall, building
That's
bins,
cool.
doing all sorts of stuff like that.
Really hands-on.
So, yeah, that was kind of the key transition that led me over to the retail side, and
Yep.
I was at Newbury Comics for over 10 years.
Yeah, I loved Newberry Comics back in
Yeah.
the day. I would go to the Cambridge location often and,
Yep.
get my records and posters and things like that, so I could so see you
Yeah.
and I remember when we first met, you mentioned that, and I was like,
Yeah.
"That makes sense. I can so see you there." And now you're in a store again, but in between that point is when we met, in the high tech world, right?
Yep.
So, um, not like that was your first high tech job, but we met, at a company called Continuum, which has now been acquired. And I was on the content team. You were leading product marketing.
Yep.
And so I got to see you in action and, the fast pace, often like, pol- business politics of it all, and we went through it together. But just walk through your experience of shifting into high tech,
Yep.
how you felt building your career because you built a successful career for years there, that eventually got you to this point that now you're super happy and this is where you're fulfilled. So, how was that bridge?
Yeah, I
And
was super happy then too, but it
okay,
was
that's
it was
great.
just kind of a different so I was in tech for almost 23 years.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, it was 23 years. But it's interesting. It kinda like the Newbury Comics thing. You think about kind of the bridges that bring you from one phase, kind of that reinvention.
Hmm.
Each each one of those reinventions contained a component which was from the previous experience, right? So when I got into Newbury Comics, it was a combination of being a band guy and being a construction guy, and it just
Right.
fit, right? And when I went into tech, I jumped into tech in 1999, but it
Mhm.
was at a time it was at a time when I, again, seeing something that was fascinating, just even as a user, right? Um, having an incredible interest in trying to learn what that was all about. It was the birth of .com.
Yeah, that
It
was the
was,
time.
yep, and it was a time when there was an opportunity for people like me who had a pretty extensive resume at that point. Even though I was kind of on the retail side of the house and I was building out businesses and helping with modeling and all those kind of things, I it was at a point when you could parlay that and use that as kind of your entry ticket
Mhm.
into a dramatically different in fledgling business as part of that. It's so funny. I look back now when I jumped into tech, I took a radical cut in pay, which may seem almost
Really?
hard to believe in this time, like literally halved my pay at least. And
What made you do it? Just you were so excited to learn something new?
correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And I had confidence that I could learn it, and I had confidence that it would pay off in the long run, right?
Mhm.
That it was a risk worth taking, and I could have always bounced back into if I felt like the bottom was dropping out, I could always kind of bounce back into the retail world if that's in
Mhm.
fact what I wanted to do. But even when I was going to do it, I'm not kidding when I say this, and I won't mention any names because they're relatively well known people. But I had some people come to me and just said, "You're crazy to do this. You should go back to hammer and nails," and
Really?
literally just completely um,
Beating you down?
threw shade on the concept that I wasn't built to make that move into
Wow.
technology.
But you had
Yeah,
that confidence in yourself and trusted your gut enough to say, "This is worth it, I can figure it out," and you
yep,
genuinely wanted to just learn. So
correct.
that's really awesome that you had
Yeah,
that strength in
correct.
you.
It was insulting the level of some of
Yeah.
the remarks that people said to me when I announced that that's what I was gonna do.
Wow.
And, yeah, yeah, it was
But you still
to
did it.
kind to stick to those guns, but, you know what, the thing it a common binding factor, and it carries through even at what I'm doing now, and one of the ways I approach technology is I believe in demystifying technology, right?
Yeah.
So back in the day, it was when, you know, you had a lot of engineers of the philosophy and of the ilk who that basically they were kind of the wizard on the mountaintop, right?
Right.
And I came from a business building exercise for a great retail chain in Newbury Comics and even my stint at Jordan Marsh and thought, okay, how do you take this stuff to build really cool tools that will legitimately help business without making them feel like complete idiots about how to navigate through those things. So that was really my kind of my bridge into tech was to take that knowledge of kind of retail business building and customer awareness
Mhm.
and how to position myself to be able to contribute into the growth of tech that is really about the idea of how to opinionate on products that are really going to serve serve the constituent and serve the customer in a way that they can understand and it provides value.
I think
And
that's
so,
very astute of you to understand what knowledge you had from previous experiences and how to use that, like, the customer experience is everything in
yeah.
technology. So how to apply that in a way, it shows just higher level thinking and really creative thinking. So it's awesome that you were um, in tune with that and aware enough to actually carry that out in a successful way. And you trusted yourself from the start. So
Well, it's
that's
funny too. I never really saw it as like, where is this going to get me? Like, it wasn't like I want to be a VP of product, or
yeah.
it just started out with, wow, this is a fascinating industry,
You were
and
genuinely intrigued.
yeah, it genuinely intrigued. And how do I? And again, like I look back and I, you talk about feeling like the dumbest guy in the room. I honestly think the first 3 years easy of being in tech, I was like a lot of absorption, right? A lot of
Mhm.
questions, a lot of absorption, a lot of really just trying to learn on the fly and as my
Yeah.
hands were on the wheel. But
Yeah.
it it was a good path, and
It
I
worked.
yeah, and I met some great people, and as you know, before we met, I did 2 separate stints at Microsoft and,
Yeah.
travel around the world helping technology partners, kind of become I was almost becoming part of their product team and helping them, understand how better to market technology services like cloud and security and database and you name it, but again still using that lens as a business owner and as
Mhm.
who had built out some of these things about what matters most to me, and so that translated into a lot of the things that I did. So
Yeah. Well, that's just great that it worked for you and you jumped around to a few different companies and moved up the ladder and did well and had a thriving career there. And when I met you, when we would talk and we got to know each other, you also talked about your passion projects outside of work
yep.
that you have kept going for basically your whole life, right? Several years. You've been growing in photography and you do all different types of creative treatments of art. So, do you want to talk about what you're currently into, maybe how they started and how it led you to your shop now?
Yeah, so I'll carve that up in 2 core ways since we've kinda covered a lot on the retail side of things. Um, from a creative standpoint, I was always a lover of old things, in creating even when I was a little tyke, and, I kinda look back and I think if I ran into myself now, I'd be like, "That's an interesting, strange little kid over there." But it's, it I had a strong work ethic there. I will tell you, like, the first item I ever bought with my paper route money, and I had a paper route back when I
Oh,
was in elementary school, was an 1870s cast iron stove.
that says
I
everything
had this
about you.
mad idea in the back of my head that I was gonna install my parents would let me install it in my bedroom, and I'd, like,
Let me
run
get a stove for my room.
out the window. It is actually still in front of the shop, that very
Oh
thing.
my
It's
god.
all rusty and it's holding a flag out front,
Oh,
but
I have to go see
it's still
that.
around. So, I always had this strong interest in creativity, and it was really more about kind of the assembly of things. It wasn't just like being a fine artist or whatever. It was I've never considered myself a fine artist. I have a lot of curiosity, right? And
Mhm.
I'm not afraid to take a bunch of wacky things and throw them together. And I started to do that as a little kid. And if anything, it was even in elementary school that I got involved with doing photography. And I had my first dark room when I was probably in 5th grade and
Wow, in
started
your
to
home?
develop film. Yep, developed film in my basement in, like, 5th
Wow.
grade, and one of my first rolls of film, this is a funny little tie-in, even though I grew up in Newton Lower Falls at that time, we came up to Newburyport all the time. The first roll of film I ever developed, which was 1975,
Wow.
um, was Newburyport. It was
Wow, that's so
black and white
cool.
shots I took as a school kid in Newburyport, which is just trippy to
It is
really.
trippy.
So, um, so today, with the shop, I think one of the critical things that kind of ties back to the first part of the question, that while I did not pursue any formality in the arts, if you will, I barely even liked going to art class, quite frankly, because I didn't like the rules around art.
Mhm.
Um, I always nurtured it, and I think it's critical, even in the context of having a corporate career, that it those passions need to continue. They ebb and flow. You have kids, you do it a lot. Oh, I stepped away. I mean, there's all sorts of things that will influence the amount of time that you give it. But I always encourage people that if you have a root passion that you've always been carrying, whether it's photography or art or, whatever that may be, um, to really just ensure that it's sustained, because it's once you put it down permanently that I think sometimes it's harder for people to pick back up.
Hmm.
So even all through my corporate life, um, I played in bands, I created,
I saw you that time.
yeah, yeah, oh,
I
that's
saw you a
right,
couple
that's
times.
right. And, I build sheds in the backyard, or, you
Yeah,
name it, and it those kind of things have always been going on, and I just think it's important, and then
yeah.
I was just waiting for the opportunity where I could do that on a more regular basis. So,
Yeah, that's awesome, and I totally agree, especially if you're a creative, I'm a creative, and we also share a love of New England and
yep,
being in a seaport and, you know, you've like you said, sometimes you may fall off and you have to practice, and I'm a writer. Have written in every job, but I also write just on my own almost every day.
yep,
And practicing that, I feel like builds and builds on that art form. I write poetry, whatever it is. But there's also dance that I used to dance a lot more than I do, and I keep telling myself I just need to do it. And when I actually do it, I feel this joy,
yep.
and so remembering what actually brings you that joy and lights you up, and to incorporate that as an adult, just because it's a childhood hobby, you still love it. I still dance. So
And
that's
not guilt
great.
yourself about flexing to the needs of daily life. So if you step
Right.
away from it for a while, people shouldn't feel badly about it. Know it's there, but come back to it at some point, and
Yeah,
that's really part of it. So
for
it's funny
sure.
when you saw the band, and I'll tell you, and I the my dad was a saxophonist when he was a young man, and he
Nice.
ended up having a 35 plus year career at IBM. Okay.
Okay.
Classic Mad Men era guy selling
Oh
select
yeah.
typewriters. And by the end of his career, he was putting in the first internet systems at universities.
Wow.
But one of the things I always noticed, and this was a lesson for me, even though he doesn't realize he gave the lesson, I had gone out to shows with my dad, like jazz brunches in town and stuff.
Oh, fun.
And yep, and there was some, and he's long past now, but a couple of times we were be at a show and musicians would introduce him and as being an influence of why they play jazz and all these other things, and he
Oh,
would stand up. And but here's the thing, I never saw my dad play the very instrument that everybody called him out for, meaning
really?
he gave it up to be a corporate guy and to be a father. And I think that always kind of ate at him a little bit,
Yeah.
and I never got to see him play outside of periodically just diddling around with a clarinet in the house. But
Wow.
never got to see him. So it's really
That's
important that
wild.
your children get to see those passions, because it will
Oh,
help
I love that lesson.
influence them as well. So,
Thank you for sharing that, because I think about that in my own life, and when my son dances around with me and we play music and my husband Gabe plays the guitar and
Yep.
that's the stuff you need to share with them and
Yeah.
expose them to. Um, and that's just really interesting that you never actually saw your dad play what he was
Nope.
known for, but at least you had those experiences together where you were sharing the love of music.
Correct. Correct. But it was when you recognize, again, we're talking a lot about passions. There's a key part of you that makes you who you are, right?
Yeah.
And before you become a parent and all the or whatever, there's these things that really are drivers to you as a person. And when Hannah, our first, was born, I was playing in a band at the time in Boston and quite, all over the place, a couple of times in New York. And I stopped cold turkey, literally stopped playing in a band. I was just like,
Mhm.
nope, I want to be a dad and I want to be a good dad.
Mhm.
But I came back to it because of that very lesson that I'd learned from my dad. Cause I'm like, my kids have to see this at some point
Yeah. And
because it's
there's
such a critical part.
it's a critical part that you don't wanna lose of yourself, and
Correct.
I think we all go through chapters and, like, to be transparent right now, my career has shifted so I have more time to be a mom, and maybe I'll go back to being, like, more full into the career and other things, but, like, right now, I'm really enjoying the new motherhood, so I
As you
totally
should.
understand. Yeah, and it makes sense, it feels right,
Yeah.
but to come back to what your passions are. And so I was
Yep.
going to talk about the fact that you're a father and a grandfather. And so when thinking about what you've built now with your store, New England Sketchbook, um, is there a legacy you're hoping to leave as you build out more of your community and be more active in the Newburyport and New England area? And
Yep.
how do you see that for your family? And just so they have that to learn from and look back on.
Yeah. I mean, I'm gonna say something that may sound kind of radical.
Go for it.
I I I don't really have much care about legacy per se.
Mhm.
Um, what I'm hoping for is the lessons of moving forward and staying true to self are kind of taught. Like if I guess you could call that legacy. I kind of a little bit before we got going and we were chatting a bit is the idea that every one of these moves along the way, including sketchbook, they are, as I like to say quite a bit, equal parts fear and excitement, right?
Mm,
It's terrifying sometimes to do these things. It is not easy. Anybody who tells you it is easy, no way, it's not. And I, I want my kids and then ultimately, hopefully, grandkids, uh, to recognize that you are in way more in control of your destiny than you realize, and that
mhm,
it is not some radical thing to reinvent and take a left turn here and there.
mhm.
It was funny at the top of our conversation, kind of, construction, retail,
Yeah.
tech. They sound like such radically disparate parts, but to me, they were all just kind of like, okay, this is the next layer of
Mhm.
me, right?
Yeah.
And so I never really looked at them as being disconnected, and stepping from one to the other just felt crazy natural, quite frankly. And I've had some people ask me, particularly from the Newbury comic side, they were like, "How did you do what you did in tech?" And it goes back to all the things I talk about an eagerness to learn, right? An adaptability around that. I will tell you, and you were in tech, and it's really important. Um, I actually think the most successful people I have known in tech, it's not just about a core expertise. It's about that dare I call it, can-do spirit, right? Like that idea that, hey, if I don't know it, I'll figure it out,
Yeah.
right? And I would much rather hire somebody who's like I'll figure it out versus, oh, I have 3 years of this one specific lane, because it's that adaptability, particularly in tech, which is constantly changing. Um, that adaptability makes you an asset, and that's
Mhm.
a really important part. So,
I completely agree, and that's not really something you can teach. It's like it's kind of a quality that you have that willingness, and then you have the ability to do it,
yeah,
and you will continue working on it when it's challenging, when it's sometimes confusing. You'll just figure it out, and you'll make it work, and that's definitely what you did, and that's what you have to do today, especially because, I mean, the job market is difficult
yeah,
and tech is a difficult space, especially. It's quite competitive, and companies are, often volatile. And so having that quality, I think, is a really good piece of advice. And kind of what you were saying before about what would you teach your children and grandchildren, and just thinking about, because I remember when you first opened New England Sketchbook and I went in for the first time and I was like, how is it going? Like, how do you feel? Like, and you mentioned how scary it can be
oh yeah.
to completely change your life and take that leap. So can you walk through, when giving that advice of follow your heart and you can have control over your destiny,
Yep.
how did you actually do that with confidence and get over the hump of feeling like this is crazy? What am I doing? This is scary.
Well, it's a combination of things. First and foremost, here we are talking about kids and such. I definitely wouldn't have done this. I mean, you have to be pragmatic about career choices to be able to provide for your family, right? And have the right kind of scenario to raise your kids, be present for your kids, all the kind of put a good roof over the head, all those kind of things that you want to make sure are there. Um, I I would not have taken the leap of doing this if the kids were younger, like in junior high or something. I
Yeah,
wouldn't have done
the
that.
timing
And
made sense.
yeah, and that's okay. Again, the idea of getting to do something like this had always been bubbling under for years and years and years. But,
Mhm.
I recognize that, okay, you have to wait till you're at that certain point. And then the other thing is having, critically, having a great partner that you can sit and chat about it with, and you can have really honest conversations about the evolution, because it is a pair. Yeah, I mean, your partners in crime in all things. So
Yeah.
it your partner is your best collaborator as part of that,
Yeah.
and your best champion, as Tammy is, like, behind the scenes. She's not in the shop every day, but she's a huge part of, making it happen, and I wouldn't be here without her helping support, like, I mean, very much a backstop to
Yeah,
that.
I can
And,
totally see that, and
yeah,
I
and,
know you're lucky
as you
that we both have partners like that, and she is just your biggest cheerleader. And was she
yeah.
always just, like, all in on the idea and she just said, "Go for it"?
Yeah, I mean, she's probably even more of a cheerleader of passions than I am, which is really kind of
I love her.
interesting. But I have had, she always says, the way she'll always phrase it is like, well, you have a thing, you have a thing. And because I always kind of knew this is what I wanted to build, right?
Yeah.
And for a good amount of time, wanted to just kind of figure out, okay, at what point do we pull this trigger where things are ready to be able to make these things happen? Um, but yeah, I mean, I could probably, she'd miss me terribly, but I could probably say, yeah, I want to jump on my motorcycle and do a travelogue of, I don't know, going to Montana or something. And she'd be like,
See you in a month.
awesome. So, she's been
She's
fantastic.
chill.
And I am very, very lucky to have somebody who is as enthusiastic about those things, and that is part of the secret sauce, quite frankly.
Oh,
It's
That's
and I
everything.
feel very lucky and very fortunate to have her. So
Oh, that's
as
so
part of that.
sweet. You guys are a power couple. I always say that, the 2 of you.
She's got a real job, and
But you have a
I
thing. Oh my
oh.
gosh.
So
So
at any rate, it really was kind of the partnership thing
yeah,
to pull the trigger. And then the other thing that is probably good to mention, uh, a good year and a half before I pulled the trigger, um, I'd modeled the business.
yeah,
And everybody's going to have different aptitudes at that, but I was pretty confident about how the business needed to run, and I wasn't just kind of going, I'll figure it out when I'm there. I mean,
yeah.
a lot of it is
Planned it.
there's a lot of learnings that come from it, and you have to kind of adapt to the learnings to help optimize, right, and make things
Mhm.
better. But I had a pretty rock solid business case that I put together, and it was as much a forcing function for me to say, could this work if it goes according to plan? So I was puking out my thoughts into this like walking deck all the time and always revising it about how the model was going to go. And I think that helped me validate and tune way before I even like said, hey, that's where I want to put my business. So,
Yeah, well, that's smart, and it's makes total sense to plan it out and make sure it would actually work. And
yeah.
so I'm curious, since you started, how long ago did you open the shop now?
Uh, we are not even 3 years at this point.
Yeah, yeah, so it's been
Yeah, not
fairly
even 3 years. So
new.
it was my god, I should know this off the top of my head. Uh, it is November 20th or something is our 3rd year anniversary. I gotta look this
Hey,
up.
it's coming
Holy
up.
cow, I should know that.
Wow, have to do
Um,
something to celebrate.
I
But
know it
ask
is coming up.
yeah, since you've been, in business, learning, meeting people in the community, adapting, like you said, what did you feel like you had to change a lot? Have you been constantly, taking inventory on people's perspectives? How difficult has it been to keep it going and quickly learn, to be the best it can be?
Yeah, great question. I think foundationally, and I believe this for every business that is in a town like this, um, authenticity is critical. Um,
Very on brand for this podcast.
yeah, I mean, well, it really is because it's easy to just stamp out another version of, oh, it's just like the other shop, just the labels are different. It creating the experience and really kind of having the passion to share that experience with the people who come visit. And I literally call people who come into my shop visitors. I don't even it's just
Yeah.
kind of the nomenclature I think is important. Um, there has been an interesting side effect of opening the business and over these last few years about how much our visitors kind of share is a good way to put it in terms of opinions about things, their own experiences with some of the stories that we are bringing back, and I would say we have a wildly engaged customer base, which is
Mm,
great.
that's
And
great.
to your point, great example. Hold on, I got a prop. I can actually
Oh,
show you.
perfect.
So like this guy, our main logo guy, right?
Mhm.
When I first opened, I had nothing, no merchandise with him on it, and he's on our sign, and he's part of the logo I created. Um, but people would come in and they're like, "Would you please like pull him out of that circle and put him on merchandise?" And people have asked for different things like, "Oh, great example. We're just starting to do some of it was historic wood. Like, hey, I'd really love it if you guys had fountain pens and
Okay.
things about that have historical references." And so they're wildly interactive, and I learn from them every single
That's
day,
great.
which has been great. And I would say there was only one part of my model that completely blew up and did not turn into what I think it was gonna turn into, so I had to abandon it, which was really more about, like, reclaimed and repurposed furniture,
Okay,
with really good stories. It just too small a shop, too long a shelf life, didn't work. But
got it.
other than that, it's been pretty close to plan, so
That's so cool, and I mean, when I think about your shop, and for anyone listening, I correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a nostalgic shop of New England items, whether it's clothing, whether it's art, jewelry, um, bits and bobs of just really unique pieces. I think unique is the best way to describe it. And like you said,
yeah,
you want that type of experience for the visitors, and it's just so cool that they're interacting on like an emotional level
they
and
are.
from their genuine interests
They are.
in New England where they live. So I
Yep.
think that's really great, and it's working for you really well. So I think I just have one last question. And something you always mention is that you like to, after work, you like to go and sit by the river, maybe have a beverage, and just have like a peaceful moment. Um,
Yes.
so what do those moments teach you when you like maybe the last time you did it? What were you thinking? Is there gratitude? Are you trying to figure things out? Where's your head in those moments?
Yeah, great question. And I am blessed with proximity because
Yeah, right on the
here,
river.
you know, yeah, 120 paces maybe to sit in an Adirondack chair on the side of the Merrimack and watch the sun go down.
Perfect.
Um, it's an incredibly special gift.
Yeah.
So, if anything, I don't use it from a problem-solving perspective as much as it's more of a gratitude moment
Yeah.
than anything, like, you know, it's a hell of a long, hard ride through a career. It's a lot of investment of time. There's a lot of great stuff along the way as we've been talking about, but it it's kind of it's the reward for the effort to
Yes.
recognize, to be there. I'm
Oh,
losing my
that's so cool. Just to be
so
in that moment and to feel that way.
yeah, and so I feel even though there's an incredible amount of work behind it, like I said, every day,
Yeah.
uh, I feel incredibly fortunate that I've been able to get to this point and be part of this community,
And
and
like you were saying oh, sorry, I was gonna say, like you were saying, it's possible for anyone. You can take control. You don't have to feel stuck. You can do something you actually care about, right?
yeah,
So,
yeah.
um, feel free to share any of that wisdom as well as we depart.
Well, one of I'll say one, and this is really hard for some people, and I've run into a lot of people. We didn't really talk about, like, even though, we've had this outside of this recorded dialogue, um, there's a lot of politics in the world, and I'm not
Yeah.
talking about governmental politics. I'm talking about, like, workplace
Yes.
politics. It Having the passion drives the energy, right? And kind of thought process, which is really critical. But the other thing that really is a core principle that across everything I've done and I honestly believe it contributed to my success in tech, um, commit to getting things done. And I know that may seem overly simplistic, but in the worst toxic political environment that you could run into at a corporation, if you're actually creating value and getting things done, and it's all about getting things done. It's like moving the rock up the hill.
Mhm.
It it it's personally rewarding,
Yeah.
and it will always help you where you go. It
That's really good advice. I
really
personally getting things done makes me feel so fulfilled, satisfied, proud, and in anything I do, like this podcast, I'm getting this episode done and
yeah,
it feels
yeah,
great.
yeah,
And I can enjoy the process of doing it as well. And when it's done, I can say, I did that.
yeah,
So I feel you 100%. And especially in the corporate environments, I think just focusing on that is
yeah.
helpful.
there are people get wild, and I understand it's hard to inoculate yourself against it, but you really do need to create some armor
Yeah.
around the people who are there just because they're trying to build a fiefdom or whatever. I mean, it's some just do your work, get it done, provide value. So
Mhm. Cool. So it seems like there's a lot of great things on the horizon for you with New England Sketchbook and just life in general. So thank you so much for sharing all of this helpful advice and just chatting as
yeah,
friends do. So we'll have
wonderful
to talk again
conversation.
soon. Yeah, it was wonderful. All right,
Yeah,
well, thank you and take care.
awesome. Thank
All
you so
right.
much.
Bye.